what is this? More critics, I presume. And who do I have the pleasure of addressing this evening? Perhaps you are the ones called La'imi Hawaii, or Punimu Olelo. No, R. Kapihe. Well, I am shocked that you have finally dredged up the courage to face Samuel Kamakau in person. So, go on and tell me what reprimand you have for me this time. Perhaps it is, do not do genealogies without listening. I assure you, I've heard that one before. Now, I encourage you to visit my genealogies. Sit down, think, read a bit, think a bit more until you really understand. Then, go back to your papers and write with your intelligence. From whence does your ignorance come? From the eyes, perhaps. Or perhaps it is simply that your knowledge is little. Now your foolish war with Kamakau plays straight into the money-grubbing hands of our common foe. Now each week I open Ka Nupepa Kuakoa or Ke'au Okoa to find a new voice added to the chorus. We are much more learned in the matters of Hawaiian history than Kamakau. And yet, you are too cowardly to publish your given name, so you sign your declamations with a vague OEV title, the people of Hawaii, or the voice of our ancestors. Occasionally, one of you will show some spirit and break away from the pack. The Honorable John Papai'i, for example, has no love for me or my histories, and his attacks grow more vicious by the day. But I assure you, by the end of our conversation this evening, there will be no doubt as to whether or not I am a true authority on Lahainaluna Hawaii. Now, to attempt to shake Samuel Kamakau from his purpose is to stand at the door of frustration. You will fall under my feet and crawl below like a pinhole. So, I suppose I should start from the beginning so as to lay a foundation for my case. I, Samuel Manaya Kalani Kamakau, was born in Mokuleia on Oahu on October 29, 1815. Now, when I was only 5 years old, our kingdom was changed forever. Am I correct in surmising that not even you could have overlooked the arrival of the Protestant missionaries? Progress. Then, as you know, they brought with them books and Western learning and helped us to create a written Hawaiian language. Now, these benevolent heroes sought to raise us up from our savagery, and almost immediately they infiltrated the homes of the ali'i. Now, Kamehameha III, delighted with their show of knowledge, declared, "O ko'u au puni, he au puni pala pala ko'u. My kingdom is a kingdom of literacy." And upon hearing this, the Kanaka Maoli flocked to these newly formed schools, and before long, the demand for Pupu was more than the number available. So it became necessary to build a high school above the town of Lahaina, whose express purpose was to train O'iwi Kubu. Now, prior to that, I had not the luxury of a teacher to instruct me in alphabets and numbers, and but I acquired knowledge nonetheless without the need of a school. Now, my personal efforts were sufficient, it seems, for in 1883 I was selected to enroll in the Lahainaluna Seminaries as one of the nation's most promising prospects. Now, in addition to exceeding gloriously at my studies, I found that I could be extremely useful to the foreign kubu. Now, I was paid $3 a week to assist Reverend Lorrin Andrews, principal of the school, in a variety of endeavors, including the creation of a Hawaiian grammar and later a full Hawaiian language dictionary of some 15,000 words. Now, my most significant relationship with a foreigner, however, began when Reverend Sheldon Dibble returned to Maui in 1843. Now, his job at Lahainaluna was to teach the students history. While engaged in pursuit, he discovered a frightening truth. We, O'iwi, were happily learning the histories of foreign nations, while simultaneously forgetting our own. Now, if we did not gather our stories immediately, our children would be like the American Indian, a race without a history. Now, this was simply not an option. As the people of Albion read about the Saxons and William the Conqueror, so should the Hawaiians read about their history. So a society was started at Lahainaluna in 1841 with the aid of the Maui. Its aim was the conservation of historical data concerning the chiefs, the origin of this race, and the first foreigners who came to these islands. And we called it Ka Ahuhui Imi Inamea Kahiko o Hawaii. Not many Hawaiian speakers amongst you. Strange for a group that purports itself as being learned in Hawaiian history. Allow me to translate. Our group came to be known as the Royal Historical Society of Hawaii. Our goal was to preserve the histories Mai Hawaii a Kauai from first to last. Now we began to gather all the information that we could, but there were still many things that we did not know. So we turned to our Huda, to our elders, Olana Iwi, the bones live. And it became our strategy to split our small society so that each man could be paid to go around his island and ask our kupuna for facts and stories of the places where they lived. The only trouble was that these kupuna, these residents, had already passed away. And strangers who had forgotten these histories of the land in which they dwelt had taken their place. Still others were those foreigners who came to know or claim so much about the land and the people, and yet whose knowledge was only superficial. Now, for 3 years, the society did its work dutifully and faithfully, with the production of Reverend Dibble's History of the Sandwich Islands as our crowning achievement. Now, the book was published at Lahainaluna in 1843, complete with a handsome carved map of our homeland, courtesy of Reverend Andrews. However, there were still many holes in the history, which we intended to fill, but not for the sudden death of Reverend Dibble in 1845. Now, almost simultaneously, the Maui moved his court to be near the new legislature in Honolulu, and funding for our society slowed to a trickle. Now, without funding, our society became hema, weak and faulty. And before long, it breathed its last breath. But we were men of substance, and the task had to be seen through to its end. But without funding from the seminary or the crown, we were forced to seek out a new strategy. So, how could we create a far-reaching dialogue amongst the people that decimated the largest amount of knowledge at the fastest rate? Now, you of all people should know. No thoughts? You are a litter of pups whose eyes have not yet opened, gnawing at the skin of your neighbor. I refer, of course, to the newspaper. Yeah, oh my ka'i. Now, the 1860s saw Hawaiian literacy at an all-time high. And because newspapers could be created quickly, relatively cheaply, and could coexist and thrive in a market with competing periodicals, they became a living and breathing repository for historical and cultural knowledge. A gentleman's historical society, however, they are not. The papers became a battleground rife with mudslinging, personal attacks, and an excess of fools who had no business touching the sheaf of a paper, much less committing thoughts to one. Now, I had contributed to newspapers for many years, beginning with the genealogy of chiefs, printed in 1842. Now, it was not until after years of research, a prolonged illness, and a frustrating search for a publisher that I finally laid before the public my Hawaiian histories in the newspaper Kanu Pepa Kuopua. Now, you have all shown a great deal of jealousy with regard to these histories. The line of descent of some of the high chiefs appears to find a special disfavor in your eyes, very probably for the reason that your names are not included among those whom I have written down as ancestors or descendants and near kin to Kamehameha I. I simply write the genealogy as it was taught from my ancestors, from the source. How can I falsify the truth before God? Now, squabbling over familial heritage, I could bear, but my stomach is churned by the repeated outcry that Hawaiian history is something very sacred and forsooth must not be published. What civilized country could think of laying a kapu on its history? How is it with England? Or with France? With all of Europe? How was it with Greece? Or Rome in the ancient times? Now we profess to be a Christian kingdom. So let us come out into the light and forsake any superstitious nonsense. What is to be gained from the suppression of knowledge? It seems we have finally reached the heart of the matter. Now perhaps the reason some of you hide behind your silly monikers is not because you fear to be named amongst your fellow Hawaiians, but because you're not Hawaiian at all. May not Ahauli proudly print an article deriding the value of Oiwi culture and then write a second article under an assumed Kanaka Ole name to lend credence to the first? Let me interject that not all haole are so reprehensible. Reverend Andrews, for example, saw that the brutes sought to close the doors of heaven to the Hawaiians and keep the honors of the throne for themselves. Just as he left the mission in 1842, so have I severed my ties with the charlatans. I have forsaken their faith and now seek salvation amongst the Catholics. Yes, the rumors are true. Run home and write an editorial if you so wish. Such trash will be the talk of the islands when the papers come out next week, but not a breath will there be regarding the real story. Our culture and history stand at the brink of annihilation. Now the foreigners have orchestrated an ideological war that we might fight one another rather than unite against the haole. They have transformed the Hawaiian from a creature of peace and aloha into one skilled in argument. I am no writer. I am no warrior. But I can speak and I can write, and I will use those talents to spill the ink that we may avoid the spilling of blood. So you and I are different. Thank God for that. But we are all Hawaiian. Now I weep that men who should by all purposes stand my closest friends have become my foes. The Honorable John Papa'i'i, for example, assaults me weekly in the most public of forums and preys not only on my historical accounts, but on my character and my faith. Am I not his equal in my love for the kingdom? Now, I'i has been long admired for his great statesmanship and his illustrious political career. Have I not also faithfully served the mo'i from the judge's bench, from the board of land title commissions, from the legislature where I frequently receive more votes than any other candidate? Do I not deserve the same respect as John Papa'i'i? Would that he still walked this earth that we may lay this conflict to rest. Such partners we could have been. But the Lord had other plans. I'i's campaign against Kamakau ended suddenly in 1870. And despite the bad blood between us, it was I who stood first in the legislature, a black band of mourning secured against my arm. I proposed that the assembly be adjourned out of respect for the deceased. Now, we are connected to our ancestors through a piko, an umbilical cord that is genealogical, cultural, spiritual, and intellectual. From this cord is our very culture, our way of life nourished. Ikava mamua, kava mohope. And the future is the past. Were it cut, our people would cease to live. The time has come for you to gird up your loins and stand firm in the defense of that people. It matters no longer who is right or who is wrong. It matters only that we make peace and present a unified Hawaiian history. A history with which we are all proud. Now, I am always satisfied greatly to see the faces of those who buy insults. Now, I hope when we see each other again, we will meet as friends. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, mahalo, good night, and dahuivo.